Wally, glad to be here with you today. Off camera, we got to catch up a little bit. Similar interests. I hope to get to go scuba diving with you someday.
Look forward to it.
But today we're going to talk about something that's really, I think, important and exciting. And I'm going to let you kind of introduce the topic. But today we're going to be talking mostly about leadership, different aspects of leadership and how they apply to construction businesses. And I think a lot of the time we're going to learn what I did wrong. So you're going to teach something, I'm like, oh yeah, let me tell you about a time I did that wrong and what I've learned from it. And so I'm just excited for this dialogue. So maybe just kind of introduce this first topic and we can go from there.
Yeah, your comment about the things I've done wrong, I think that's like the first step to recovery, right? To admit that I have a problem, I'm a failed leader or something like that, but we all make mistakes, right?
Yeah.
But this concept of situational leadership, it's credited with a guy by the name of Ken Blanchard, but intuitively it makes sense, right? That I have to treat the new guy differently than I treat the tenured guy. That makes sense. And along the way, there are different levels of development. That's the one side of it. Then there's the leader side, that each of us has a preferred style that may or may not match the developmental level of the people. So intuitively, we get it, but the term and the conversation will enable us and allow us to kind of define it and see it a little bit more and make it a little bit more usable to the folks checking in on us.
Yeah. So, but when you say, their tenure, is that tenure at the company, tenure in the industry?
Time in the industry.
Industry.
Yeah, at the craft. But certainly there's a nuance, right? I mean, we can, and this is always a cultural conversation, right? You say, we hire a guy who's a 20-year operator.
Yeah.
He may or may not fit us, right? Maybe it's a hard bid, public bid to a private bid side. That's a simplistic example.
Yeah.
But we always have to look at that fit thing. But generally somebody more experienced in the work being done, in the task.
Yeah, they're going to require less oversight, generally.
They will. But again, what's my tendency from a supervisory perspective? And if I'm not matching, I could just be ticking them off. Right, if I'm micromanaging you, for example, guy who's been doing this for years, highly experienced, and I'm standing over you, you're like, get away from me.
Yeah.
Right. So understanding where they are, and then understanding where we are from a leadership perspective, and trying to match that.
Gotcha. So maybe let's talk about the leadership side first. Of like, how do I get to understand where I'm at? Because I imagine there's plenty of people who are listening to this and they're like, I'm that guy. I'm that guy who's over the shoulder all the time. I've been that guy, like, and maybe it's, we were talking about previously this topic of cover and move, and we were doing the FTX with the Echelon Front group, and one of the things that they pointed out quickly was, they're like, hey, it's cover and move, right? So somebody's laying down cover fire. Why are you walking with your gun pointed as you are supposed to be moving? Like, moving means you trust them and you move. Well, I think sometimes as leaders, we micromanage because we have a hard time of trusting. At least I think that's what maybe my weakness was, but help us understand, how do we define what are our tendencies? So then we know where we're at and then can start to work around that.
Well, when you really sit back and begin to think about it, right? But the challenge is we're so busy. The pace of work is so busy out there that who has time to consider their leadership style, right? Am I hands-on? Nobody has time for that. So any leader at any level has got to find a way to create breathing room and space to consider, like, how'd the day go? How's my style? What am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? That's that beginning of self-awareness, right?
Yeah.
And as you begin to create that space, you're able to look back on an interaction with a guy or gal that didn't go well. Well, why didn't it go well? What could I have done differently, right? So it's creating space to begin to think, to begin to do after actions and postmortems, as we learned with the SEALs, and triage and critique every situation and go, oh, I was probably a little, and ask people too. Yeah. Is there anything I could have done differently to help you succeed yesterday, to help that go better yesterday?
Yeah.
Be careful what you get. You ask for it, right? Go, oh yeah, damn right, you could have. And all you do is that point is go,
thank you.
Yeah. Right. But it's really about putting on your big boy undies and your big boy armor and going into conversations that traditionally we've never had.
Yeah, so I think one of the things I heard you say, and like it was, I kind of said, hey, that's important. You said, what could I do better? I think a lot of times when we go back, it's easy for us to look at a situation and say, they blew up.
You should have, could have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They blew up. That's why it went bad, because they blew up. But you can't control their reaction to the situation. So I've been having this conversation with my kids, and I've been talking about it at work. Instead of spending energy and time in assigning blame or talking about what someone else could do better, if you spend that same amount of energy and time in working on you, you will end up being, just light years away ahead of everybody else, because you can control the controllable, right? Like control what you can, and that's usually you.
And you talk about, I can't control what you do, but I can influence the hell out of it, right? So if my approach is of the jerk mode.
Yeah, if I'm here.
Right, well, you're gonna respond the same way. It's called fight or flight, and basic evolutionary mechanisms kick in, and now you're not the saber-toothed tiger, but you are the saber-toothed tiger, and that happens down here at the subconscious level. We don't even think through it.
Yeah.
Right, so again, being able to breathe and create the space. But that approach of what could I do differently to help that go differently? What could I do differently to help you succeed? First of all, the burden is on you as the leader, right? So you take that onus, which is yours, by the way, but it also suggests to somebody a vulnerability. So now when I say, hey, Randy, what could I have done differently? You're more likely to say, well, I could have done this differently, right? To take your own piece of ownership, as opposed to if I attack you in the first place, right? And you were talking about, this concept of blame. Right? When you look at the highest performing organizations, there's no blame, right? There's how do we find it, how do we fix it, and how do we stop it from happening again? Yeah. Now, if it happens 2 or 3 times, that's a separate issue, right? But there's no fault finding, right? There's solutions finding, in my experience, with high performing organizations, whether it's the SEALs or a construction project.
Yeah. One of the things that's interesting is I've taken, we were talking before we got on camera, I was saying, hey, maybe more in the last year than ever in my life, I've had the chance to work on me as a leader. And as I've done that, I've realized just how bad I am. Like, I feel like the better I get, the worse I really am. Yeah. I mean, it's just, you realize I could be here, and it took me to get to this point to see what my potential is. And so it's not demotivating, but it's this interesting dichotomy where I've become this better leader, and because of that, I realize I see more and more faults as I grow.
Yeah, the more I know, the more I learn, the more I have to work, or something like that. And I would, if you're here, that person is here, they're feeling the same way, right? You're going, oh my God, wouldn't it be great if I were? Well, they have this level of awareness too, and is the word humility? Is the word self-awareness? I don't know, but particularly in this day and age, when you say that's like a guarantee that you don't, right? So again, we come back into this concept of situational leadership, one-on-one, right? The new guy, the new gal, the new whatever does not have the life experiences that you had, that I had. So I cannot lead them the way I was led. Yeah, it doesn't work. So the awareness to say, okay, this it worked for me, and I miss the good old days. But what does this person need in this moment? And rather than bemoan the loss of the good old days, right? Yeah, okay, great. Yeah. How do we take this situation and make it work in an incredibly challenging environment? And that's where that awareness to say, God, I suck at this, is when goodness and greatness begins to happen.
Yeah, so just as I have consider that, like an example of maybe where I come from, I've noticed one thing is I'm a protector. It's in my DNA. I don't even have to think about it, it just happens. Like if I'm on a job site and I feel like my superintendent or my PM are doing a good job, and I'm in a meeting and the owner goes at them, I know now my tendency is going to be full protect mode. And if you come at them,
Sure.
I'm coming at you.
Yeah.
And so because I know that now I have to be like, okay, take a breath. Acting out the same way that they act isn't going to protect them in any way. It's only going to escalate the situation.
Nor will they gain capacity to protect themselves.
Correct. So now that I know that about me, I can kind of start coaching myself as it happens. All right, calm down. If I really want to protect them, we got to talk through this. I can't respond because they're being belligerent. I can't respond the same way because nothing's going to come out of it. And like you said, it wasn't like, oh, this is easy. Like, it took a lot of like introspection of my life and saying, oh, in every one of these situations, if you want Randy to get upset, you want me to go from level 1 to level 5, it's almost always somebody's getting bullied, somebody's getting picked on, and then that's when I become my worst self. And so
you're Sandra Bullock in the Blind Side, right?
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah. I've never been compared to Sandra
Well,
Bullock.
you're actually the lineman, right? The
Oh,
big
gotcha,
guy.
gotcha.
He protects the team.
Yeah.
That was his tendency.
It was.
Right? And it works great when you're the left tackle.
Yeah.
Doesn't necessarily work when you're trying to create a high-performing team.
Yeah. And I think it does. It's just understanding maybe your tendency to react, to protect, like your natural tendency to protect is probably not always the right one. Wanting to protect people is a good thing.
Wonderful.
But knowing that, hey, my natural tendency to, respond because somebody's being belligerent the same way, like that's not protecting. So I think that's just a good example of, hey, it took time for me to do this, but now that I can, most of my team will tell you they have never seen me lose my temper.
Yeah.
Because it took me some time to do that, but once I did, then now I can sit in a meeting and let somebody lose their temper, and okay, so what is the problem? Let's help me get there. I hear you're upset and you're frustrated, but let's get to what is the problem here. Okay, all right, but what is the problem? And you come down to it, and it's like we're not communicating. The problem is
or I'm going to look bad.
Yeah, the problem is we're not communicating, or you guys are making me look bad because you said you'd do this and you didn't do it.
Yeah.
All right, well then that's easy to fix. Let's fix that. Whereas when it becomes this personal attack because I'm not aware of a tendency I have, and so I get caught in that trap that I respond the same way I'm spoken to, then nothing gets accomplished.
A buddy of mine says, when you ping, I don't have to pong.
Yeah.
Right? You ping and I go, oh, you're talking about being a protector. It's a wonderful concept, right? And if I have a new guy who's getting his ass chewed by somebody not on my team, yeah, absolutely. Hey, he's the new guy. Don't be doing that to him.
Yeah.
But you do that to your 25-year superintendent, and he's like, dude, I got it.
Yeah.
I've been dealing with this guy. So it's that recognition of when to let that, we didn't say don't let the protector show up.
No.
We said,
be aware.
Know when
the
protector should show up or not.
Yeah, that's a good point. So as a leader, there's that side of it. But then there's the side of understanding where is each person at, whether that's tenure and skills, or even just, I imagine there's, you talk about leadership awareness.
Yeah.
What was it? What's the term you used?
Situational
awareness. Sorry, I thought you had a different word for it. So situational awareness. So there's understanding the situation, but I feel like there's also like this level of perceptiveness of understanding how they communicate. And I hear this all the time. The kids these days, you can't talk to them the same way, right?
Yeah.
Or, man, everyone here, they're a bunch of sissies.
Yeah.
I can't tell them. I just tell somebody to hurry the F up and they get all butt hurt. Like, I just want it to be the way it used to be, where you could tell somebody to get their effing job done, and they got done. Now I say that and they run to their car and shut the door and drive off the job site.
Yeah, I think there are some extremes out there, but let me give you 2 words: confirmation bias.
Okay.
Right? If I believe that everyone coming into the workforce is weak and doesn't have a work ethic, and I hire this kid, college intern, PE, laborer, whatever, and 6 days into it, he comes to work late. See, I told you they weren't worth a damn. Like, that's confirmation bias, right? So what happens there is we're not leading at all, right? Is we're managing to a lowest common denominator. My phrase would be lead the many and manage the few.
Yeah.
Right? So, okay, so the dude came to work late. Why did he come to work late? Does he even have a vehicle? Does he have childcare issues? Does he have elder care issues? Does he simply not give a damn? Okay, what can I do to help him give a damn?
Yeah.
Right? And the answer might be nothing. Might be. But here's what we know for sure, and you do too, is if I do nothing to help that weak person get stronger or that AE or them, it's going to happen. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
And there's so much of that going on today. So you're telling me that Gen Y, Gen Z, you know, my kids are 19 and 22. I think they're pretty good at what they do. Right? I think they're pretty smart. They're athletes. They know how to take a punch. But they will not put up with the crap that you and I put up with 2 and 3 generations ago.
Yeah.
Are they wrong for that? I'm not convinced. Now, I think they need to be able to take a punch.
Yeah.
Right? And some of them can't. I'll admit that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the reality. Shut the company down then, because that's your labor force.
Yeah.
Right? It's a very simple conversation. I'm a capitalist. I'm in business. I want to make money. I need to figure out how to engage that person, no matter how old they are.
But, you know, taking a punch, I mean, we're talking about grit or fortitude.
Yeah.
Like, that's an inherent ability, but that's also a learned skill. Like, I have way more grit today than I did when I was 12.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I remember being so embarrassed because I got in a fight and my dad just stood there and watched, and I started crying because the guy just beat the crap out of me. Like, and I remember being so embarrassed by that. And now it's like, I've been beat up before, and it is what it is.
It is,
You know?
yeah.
You can't win them all.
My gosh, if you look at the generation, right? If you look at millennials who are not young anymore, by the way.
Yeah, be careful, I am a millennial.
Yeah, no, I know that. I mean, there's
So is this whole staff.
Yes, exactly. But there was this mentality that said, if we increase people's self-esteem, well, we know that people with high self-esteem are high performers. We know that.
Yeah.
Well, if we increase this generation's self-esteem, they'll be high performers. Theory, reality. Is it a genuine sense of self-esteem or a falsely inflated self-esteem? You know, I live in Raleigh, North Carolina, and there's the A honor roll. Love it. I visited that once or twice when I was in 2nd grade.
Yeah.
There's also the A-B honor roll and the B honor roll, and there are no valedictorians anymore.
Yeah.
So, you know, have we made it so easy in the pursuit of protecting self-esteem that to some degree we've created people that have a fragility to them?
Yeah.
Not that you guys are fragile,
Yeah.
right? And not that anybody out there is fragile, but there's a fragility and then an uncertainty. Because everybody gets a trophy, the kids know it's crap.
Yeah.
Then they come into your place and they've always gotten trophies, so what do they expect? Trophies, even if they know they're crap, right? So recognition, let's just talk about recognition. We did some research a couple months ago. I get recognition daily, monthly, weekly. What's recognition? 500 construction professionals across the industry. 30% monthly, 18% what's recognition. In other words, 50% of our people are not getting regular recognition. So do any piece of research, what Kat does on behavior, what any psychologist does, it takes 4 to 7 positives to make up for 1 negative. And this 18% is getting nothing.
Yeah.
Right? So you say, well, these guys are weak. Well, what have you done to tell them they're doing a good job? Well, nobody ever told me I was doing a good job. Okay, fine. Can we get out of the late 20th century, right?
Yeah.
It's just different.
Yeah.
It's not right or wrong. It's different.
Well, it's funny because I think everybody recognizes, well, that's how we've always done it.
Yeah.
Is usually never
The worst thing to do.
Yeah, usually never it's almost never the right answer. But yet when it comes to interpersonal communication, leadership style, there seems to be this, let's just hold on to, well, that's the way we've done it. And like you said, it's not working. Like, that's where I think what's funny to me is what the opportunity that exists in construction and for construction companies is, if what we're doing is not working, if you embrace that, then it is opportunity. Like, you do your SWOT analysis, all of a sudden your opportunity is, if I can develop leaders and recruit better than everyone else who is saying this is how we've always done it, like exponential opportunity.
Well, and if you look at companies that have been ranked as great places to work and top places to work, and I understand there's some cynicism with some of those lists, but I know a lot of those companies as well.
Yeah.
And I can also tell you what they make at the net profit level,
Yeah.
right? And I'll never forget being at, it was World of Concrete or ConExpo a bunch of years back, talking to a fella and about his competitor. Now I work with the competitor and I know what their bottom line is.
Yeah.
And I was just kind of playing it cool. And hey, you compete against these guys. Yeah, well, they don't pay as much as we do. They can't be as profitable. Yeah, actually, that's part of the secret. You don't have to pay as much if people love being there in the first place.
Yeah.
You got to pay fair. You got to pay,
market.
good numbers.
You gotta be market.
But you don't have to pay top. And well, there's a mentality for you. I don't have to pay top. No, you just have to pay pretty damn fair in an environment that says I trust and respect you.
Yeah.
Those folks are having significantly less challenges finding labor.
Yeah.
Not no challenges, right? So this is doable. If somebody out there had a challenge on a piece of equipment, right, or an application where they need a new tool, they'd go get it in a heartbeat. To your point, they would do something different, right? Because what they were doing wasn't working, right? Well, we can't blast it, we got to drill it. We can't drill it, we got to blast it. Whatever.
Yeah.
Onboarding. Now sit there and watch the VHS tape from 1979, sit in the room by yourself, fill out the paperwork. No, actually, how about a link that comes to my phone? And I click it, and it says, do you want to do your onboarding on mobile device, a desktop, or in person? And then I click that. And then I go down this dynamic path to basically customize my onboarding.
Yeah.
Heresy happening out there in the real world right now. It's so simple.
Yeah.
And what does that do? It says to a youngster who lives on their phone, right? Wow, this is pretty cool. Wow,
Yeah.
this is what it's used to, as opposed to watch the VHS tape. Oh my God.
I mean, that's awareness to the market, right?
Yeah.
Like whether it's in this case the job market, your potential employees, just being aware that not everybody wants to onboard in the same way, and a
it's
simple,
easy
easy
to
change. Yeah.
Right? Give them a choice. Does it cost? Yeah, a little bit initially, but the technology is so responsive these days to create an opportunity like that. And I know there's people listening to me going, that's freaking crazy.
Yeah.
That's like, there's no way. That's Flintstones. That's Jetsons. No, it's happening today.
Yeah. What's interesting though, because I ran a construction company. I think everyone assumes, well, he has a degree in construction. My degree is in finance, actually agribusiness finance, which is probably
what the hell is that?
way over here, right? way over here. But one of the things I do, I just love numbers. And I think it's interesting how when you look at the financial statements, you really have these three things that make up the bulk of your costs. You have equipment, you have labor, and you have materials.
Yeah.
And within like the heavy civil, from anybody who touches that industry, whether it's the electrical over to, concrete or the earth movers, the guys installing the pipe, the numbers don't change a whole lot.
Much.
So we're talking about potentially 18 to 30% of your costs are probably labor, depending on which trade you're in and mix of the job. And it's funny how so often we look at, well, that's going to cost me, to your point, that's going to cost me $20,000 a year. Yes, but if that $20,000 a year improves just the slightest, that 18 to 30% of your costs.
Yeah, do the leverage on that.
Yeah, like it's nothing.
Yeah.
We have such a hard time investing in this part of our business that makes up, in some businesses, the most substantial part of their costs. Yet when it comes to equipment and making a decision to go out and buy a $1.5 million piece of equipment, it's like, oh yeah, no problem.
And take it offline at 50 hours and 250 hours or whatever the interval is, right? And take it offline.
Yep.
To service it,
Yep.
right? And then at some point take it offline and rebuild it,
Yep.
right? Yet we're gonna do our company training on Saturday because we don't want to lose production.
Yeah.
Oh, what does that say to your people? Now, I don't work with any of those people anymore, but I know they're still out there because they call me and say, we're going to do our training on Saturday. I'm like, not showing.
Yeah. Yeah, we were one of them.
Yeah.
Right?
Sorry.
No, it's okay. because I think that's part of it. Because what you're trying to do is, I mean, the people who are listening to this, they're having the same. There's this dichotomy. Like, I want to invest in my people, I want to train my people, but I got to be true to my clients, and my clients want me to be there. So how do we do this? Well, we're problem solvers, like you said. I'm pretty sure if you just think about it and say, hey, let's just go out to all of our clients and say,
we're taking Friday afternoon off or Wednesday morning off.
We're going to be off Friday afternoon, or we're going to be off Friday, but we'd like your help to work 10 hours each day, because we know your projects are important. Sure. We want to keep them on schedule, but we hope you can respect that our people are important and we need to train them.
And if that client says no to that, you're working on
client. Exactly. Right? Yeah, right away you're saying, hey, we need to rethink this.
Okay, we'll think about that next bid time. But yeah, that conscious investment in people where they are. Yeah. And you know, I hate to say this, but the technology now for remote delivery, online delivery, and you know, we used to think training 6 to 8 hours in a classroom.
Yeah.
Well, build with leaders, 15, 20-minute platforms, right? You know, chunked learning, micro learning. And we're creating the same stuff where modules used to be 90 minutes and now they're 15 minutes, accessible on the mobile device, much more responsive to what they need. My daughter had a flat tire 2 days ago and it's going to take AAA a couple hours to get there. And she goes, I'm just going to Google it. Yeah. And I'm like, oh my God, will you chalk the tire, do this, do that? Fortunately, AAA showed up, but that's the mentality, right? Here's a 22-year-old girl who says, I'm going to Google how to change my tire. Yeah. Well, put the information in the hands of the people who need it when they need it. That is not that expensive anymore.
No.
Right? And the technology and COVID accelerated this, right? Our familiarity with Zoom and Teams and any kind of online delivery. So once again, getting material to people where they are when they need it is really, I think, part of the elegant solution now. Yeah. That we never did that before. Yeah. Right? We shut down on Friday, Saturday, whatever the heck it was, and train. There's a place for that too.
Yep.
There absolutely is, because we want to retain culture.
Yeah.
Right. And I think the construction world still remains one of those places where culture really matters. But again, it has to be intentional. Right. You have to work towards it.
Yeah. So we've talked kind of about, I think, kind of high level about, hey, this, you know, awareness as a leader, being aware of this. Of how we lead, being aware of where our people at. Now maybe can we just like drill into that just a little bit more? Because I think oftentimes, at least for me, I'll go to a training and I'm like, that's all awesome, but what's my takeaway? What do I do? How do I take something away and go practice this? I want to be more aware of my people, their circumstances, my leadership style. Mm-hmm. What are some tips? Maybe first, if you're the leader and you're like, I want to better understand how it is I should lead the people around me. Is there some things they can do today after watching the video to make them more aware in their own job site of how do I lead effectively for each person?
Sure. Well, let's pick delegation for example.
Okay.
Right, because it's a very specific tactical
yep.
thing, and we filmed a module on that here in Build with Leaders. Right, so hey, I want to know how to delegate. Well, there's a process for delegation.
Okay.
Right, there's ways to get it right. There's ways to get it wrong. There's techniques I can use. So part of it is making the decision, usually accompanied by writing it down and sharing it with somebody else.
Okay.
Right. So hey, Randy, I watched this video on delegation.
Yep.
I realize you may be my boss, you may be my peer, don't know, but I got to start doing more of this. Next week, check with me to make sure I delegated 2 activities, right? And then I go through the process, we talk through it, that kind of thing. The thing about behavioral change, and you're right, I don't care what book you read on leadership. I've written 2, there's a gazillion out there. Just apply it.
Yeah.
Right. Unfortunately, people read this, watch this, etc. And they go, "Oh, that's a great idea." Right. Action planning. Right. Write it down. The probability of the probability goes up 3x, 7x, 10x. You're 10 times more likely to lose weight if you create a plan to do it, as opposed to, hey, I'm just going to eat less chocolate chip cookies. Right? It's science. The other thing about it is micro goals and micro learning. And what we've learned about neuroscience in the last probably 5 to 7 years of functional MRIs and stuff like this. A buddy of mine's a dean at Michigan State Med School, and he just blows my mind all the time. We set goals, right? I'm going to delegate. I'm going to lose 20 pounds. I'm going to be a $100 million company. Whatever the goal is, there's no freaking way you're going to get there, right? We change behavior. Make sure I get this right. Well, that's a cognitive goal, right? I'm thinking about changing behavior. You know how much energy that takes? As opposed to a habit, right? Or a reflex. I put my hand on the hot stove, I pull it off. There's no energy required for that, really. No intellectual energy, which is where the real energy gets used. And I am never going to do it again. I have learned how to do that, right? And then there's habits, right? Let's use a bad habit of drinking, right? I drink, I like it, I keep doing it more. At some point, the habit rules me. That's the truth with all habits, by the way, even good ones. But it really doesn't take a lot of cognitive load. I am going to fill in the blank. High cognitive load, behavioral change. Oh my God, that's really hard. So I'm going to get in shape. I'm going to run 5 miles a day. No, you're not. I'm going to go buy sneakers. No, I'm going to research buying sneakers. Micro goal. I'm going to go buy sneakers. Micro goal. I'm going to put my sneakers on and walk to the fire hydrant. Micro goal. Micro goal. Micro goal. And this then becomes that. It's like milestones on a project, really. But the neuroscience of this then starts to work, right? And you begin to get your body and your brain chemistry working for you. But any behavioral change is micro goals. So come back to this guy who needs to delegate, right? Okay, I need to delegate.
Real quick though, actually, why you're doing, because if I don't say now, I'll forget. What's interesting about that is you talked about micro goals, and you kind of even said, hey, it's almost like milestones in a schedule. What's interesting is, as you just get a few micro goals done, if you miss one, I feel like you're more likely to still keep going. And just like on a schedule, you might have a milestone and you might miss that date, but we almost always get our projects on time, right? So you've hit all your other milestones, this one slid. Well, what do? You get it back in line, the next thing you know, the project's done on time. Whereas I think if you just said, this project's gonna be done on June 14th, it's probably not happening.
That's it. I'm gonna lose weight. I'm gonna work out. I'm gonna work out 5 times a week. Monday I do, Tuesday I do, Wednesday I don't, oh shit. Thursday I do, Friday I don't, screw it, I only did it 3 times. I told you it was too hard. Right, so the micros become super important because they build that capacity and that resilience and that confidence. Go, so I missed a day, so I missed a milestone. Not a big deal, right? So that's exactly right. So when we're talking about interacting with people, right? Okay, it's not gonna work every time, right? That's okay, keep on keeping on. We know it's a good thing. If I say, to your point, we're gonna deliver the project on June 14th and there's 27 milestones along the way and I missed this one, we don't quit the project. So if I say I'm gonna become a better delegator and it doesn't work this time, that means I quit delegating? No, that means I just didn't get that one right. We continue to do them. So I would say with almost any learned behavior, there's probably a process and a mentality behind it. Somebody's done it before, right? Whether it's within your company or, Google, delegate, right? So now I have kind of an intellectual understanding of it, a process, a roadmap, how to do it. Well, then I want to probably write it out. Who's who, how, when, what's the expectation? Then there's the approach, right? Okay, I'm going to approach this person and, hey, here's what I want you to do and why I want you to do it. So now I've given the why, which really matters for people because it helps them empower and engage themselves. And then we go, right? And then we got to watch our tendency of being a protector or a micromanager or whatever. And then you as my mentor, my running mate, come back to me and go, hey, that worked pretty well for you. How'd that work for you? I've got a board of directors in my company, right? I run a company by myself, a bunch of subcontractors, but I've got a board of directors who I'm not accountable to, but I'm accountable to.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So, when you're trying to lose weight, you get a gym buddy. You want to be a leader? Get a leader buddy. Right? Do a book study together. Read a chapter, and then do something. And just start moving the needle.
I mean, I think if I was just to think about that, and what would I do, given all of that, I think and I think I would do this, and I can say it with certainty because I've done it now.
Yeah.
But I went back to my team as I started learning about being a better leader, and I just said, listen, I'm sorry. I could have been a better leader than I've been.
Yeah.
And I want to be. And I want all of you to know that. And so I want you to guys understand when I come back and I say, hey, this is something I'm working on. Can you help me with it? There's like, that's real.
Yeah, help me with it.
Yeah, I'm not saying this because any other reason than I realize I could be a better leader, and if I'm a better leader, you guys will be more happy, and I'll be more happy. Our families both will probably be more happy. So this is a worthwhile endeavor. Let's go do it.
So true. I said have a mentor or a running mate, but absolutely with your team. Like, hey, if you see me being the protector,
Yeah.
give me a sign, like in the meeting, or pull me aside at the end of the meeting. And go, you did it again, right? And it's like, oh God, okay. So yeah, if you're in a situation where your team can help you, because they're the ones that see you more, absolutely, help them help you. By the way, what does that do? It positions you as a learner. It shows a little vulnerability, which then they go, oh, it's okay not to be perfect. It's okay to admit I don't know the answers. It's okay to raise my hand. So you're really being a role model at that point, that in a very enlightened way that encourages people at all levels to kind of do the same thing.
Yeah. As I kind of think about this concept of awareness, and people at my team, would probably be a little annoyed because I bring up these examples all the time, but I played football.
Yeah.
And so it's something that's super relatable to me. And I probably, anybody who's played a sport could probably say this about their sport, but I just think of like how much time was spent just to understand what the other team was doing, right? And what my own teammates were good at. Mm-hmm. The role I played on defense was linebacker, and so a lot of times you were the captain on the field. You were the one who was calling the defense. You were the one who was making sure people in the right spot. You were the one who, when they lined up a certain way, you got people into the right spot. And it's interesting just how similar it is. If we just would take the time to study our own players just a little bit, I think what you would see is it's not rocket scientist to realize, man, every time I talk to this one project engineer and I kind of get on him, it just doesn't go well. If I give him a list of all these things he needs to do better, I mean, he's just in a funk for 2 or 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. Whereas there might be another project engineer who that like drives him or her. Like, hey, when I give her a list of the things that she can work on, she just takes it and she not only works on those, but she kills those and 10 more. So I think you can start to realize, how do my people act in different situations?
You can.
And it doesn't take, like you said, I don't think it takes a lot. It really probably takes, an hour of really thinking about who am I working with, how does my interaction go with them, kind of coming up with some thought processes. And then I did this just like 2 weeks ago. There was a person on our team, and I felt like they had a tendency to be kind of down. And I just pulled them in and said, hey, look, I feel like kind of just down, and you're in a role where we really can't afford to have you be the person who's down. Like, you need to be the cheerleader. You need to be the one who's rallying the troops. Does that seem right to you? Mm. Am I? Yeah.
Well, what happened?
This individual was like, I haven't been enjoying what I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
Like, oh.
Tell me more.
Exactly. And all of a sudden, I feel like since then our relationship has been really good.
Yeah.
And that was not comfortable for me. But now I look back and I'm like, that was probably the best 45 minutes. Yeah. I probably spent that entire week because I learned something I didn't know about this individual. And I think we increased that person's ability to be a leader because they became aware of something that they were already aware of, but hearing me say it.
Give voice to it, yeah.
And then also, I became aware of a few other things that were making them feel that way.
Yeah.
That I could then help change.
Yeah, that's situational leadership right there.
Yeah.
right? Seeing a situation and taking specific action on it, right? As opposed to, I don't know what his freaking problem is, but he better pin a happy face on and let's go,
Yeah.
right? Sucks to be you, let's go.
Yeah. I mean, so maybe that's one of the homeworks is like, hey, if you see somebody who's struggling, you see somebody who's doing something you don't think is right, in a very loving way, in a place of care, come from a place of care. Hey, I want you to just be a rock star, but I'm noticing something. Help me understand, does this seem right? Does this seem true? And if so, what's going on?
Yeah.
And how can I help?
Yeah.
Like that helps, that makes the difference, I think.
And life is happening for people.
Yeah.
Right? COVID aside, life is happening, and elder care issues, child care issues, money issues, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that just human approach is quantify that for me on a P&L. You can't.
Yeah.
You can, but not directly.
Last week we did this activity with Rich Divini, great author, new book called The Attributes, loved it. And the activity was put up a bunch of lists of words, and he said, I want you to pick out one word, and I want you to tell the group what it is about that word that's important and what does it look like. Mm-hmm. And the word that just popped out to me was grace. And I think a lot of times when people see grace, maybe there's a tendency to think of it in a religious way.
Very spiritual.
Yeah. For me, what I think of, and you were talking about empathy earlier, I kind of overheard it. I think grace and empathy are very similar. Mm-hmm. And what I think it is as leaders, we have to remember that we should be at the minimum as graceful. We should extend as much grace to those who are coming after us as those who are before us. And I would argue we should extend the grace that we wish we would have had.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Oh, it was never done for me.
Yeah.
Break the cycle.
Exactly. So I think maybe that's really how we can become aware as leaders is, hey, try and think, how would I react? How did people treat me in this situation? How would I wish they treated me in this situation?
Yeah.
And then try and do it.
Yeah. It's a phenomenal book called Crucial Conversations. And you should read it. And they talk about CPR, it's content, process, relationship. When you and I are in a conflict, I focus on content, process, relationship. Randy, you didn't get the work done. You didn't PM your machine. Content, right? Look, dude, you're an important part of our company. You've been here for years. I'm not seeing what I'm usually seeing. And you being happy and successful here is important because that's the only way it all works for all of us. Can you talk to me about why the machine's not getting taken care of, as opposed to pick up your room, pick up your room, pick up your room, pick up your room?
Yeah.
It's not about content at that point.
Yeah.
But that's what we try to do. We try to have the content fight, whereas grace comes into the heart and soul.
Yeah.
Right? And yeah, we're talking leaders and construction. Well, you've worked with enough and spent enough time with enough military leaders that love and passion and humility and grace. Those are really the words, right? I love my brother in the foxhole, kind of a thing. Why can't that come onto a construction job? Right?
Yeah.
And the answer is it can.
Yeah.
Every single day. And that's the differentiator. That's where companies are making money these days. Not by lowering the standard, but by changing the leadership conversation and engaging in a different way.